Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best soup analysts in the business. And also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Worldby Freer, who is a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 139, the SGA episode, as the current MVP candidate scored 39 points in the Thunder's Friday night victory against Worldby's Knicks at Madison Square Garden. One quick reminder before we get started here tonight. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, to NHL and UFC, BetOnline is the number one sports betting source for the new year. From touchdowns to three-pointers and hat tricks, BetOnline has you covered on every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And tonight, we're going to get started with something much more bigger than sports, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Hey, World B. We're getting started with the story that is just captivating the nation and horrifying us all at the same time, those Los Angeles area fires. We pray for the safety and recovery of all the folks out there. It has had a ripple effect in the sports world. The Lakers and Clippers both had games postponed. The Rams had a playoff game moved to Arizona. Lakers and Clippers are back on their home courts on Monday night. So hopefully that will at least help raise the morale of some of the basketball fans as they're going through this awful time, World B.
Yeah, and it was absolutely horrible tragedy. And it was nice to see on Monday a story out about how the 12 Los Angeles professional sports teams have all united to help donate to the cause of recovery for this. I believe it's up to $8 million so far. So it was nice to see.
Very cool.
We see stories about people uniting all the time in times of tragedy. Now you have these sports teams all collectively in LA getting together and trying to do their part to help out so many people in trouble.
No doubt about it. And our thoughts and prayers remain with the city of Los Angeles and all California residents during this difficult time. Now, fellas, let's go ahead and get started by discussing 2 teams that are currently on the biggest winning streaks in the NBA, as that did change on Sunday night. And we're going to start out with a surprising team on a 7-game win streak, and that is the Sacramento Kings, of all teams, who are 7-1 since Doug Christie took over as the interim head coach. Making it even more impressive is the Kings won 3 games on this current streak without their star guard, De'Aaron Fox. The Kings now find themselves just a half game back of the 8th seed out west. So, Bruce, my question to you is, can this team avoid a play-in situation and actually get a legit playoff spot?
Well, whenever a new coach takes over, a lot of times they will get off to a really hot start. And then eventually, they'll revert back to what they are. But we thought the Kings were going to be good. So if they're reverting back to who they are, they're probably reverting back to being a pretty good team. 2 weeks ago, you guys discussed Mike Brown's dismissal, and I wasn't with you guys that week, and how it was handled in such a shabby fashion. I mean, they treated a good man and my good friend with great disrespect. They also made De'Aaron Fox look bad, which is a strange way to treat a guy that you don't want to leave as a free agent, right? Yeah. I mean, it was amateur hour in the SAC front office. Of course, Mike will still get paid since the team gave him a new 3-year deal just before the season. So he'll get paid handsomely to hang out and hopefully come on the 48 Minutes podcast at some point, since he might have a couple minutes available for his friends. He's been a friend of the show. But, that said, Ross, Doug Christie has the Kings firing on all cylinders in his first 8 games. And I can say that when they beat the Celtics last Friday in Boston, they absolutely worked them. Domantas Sabonis was a beast. 28 rebounds, 8 offensive boards, matched Boston's entire team's total of offensive boards. That was some seriously hard work by him, and he did get plenty of help. But as I said at the beginning of this comment, sometimes a new coach takes over. It's a different voice. Guys get all jazzed up. You can probably speak to this way better than me since you've been in a locker room when that happens. But as I said, they were expected to be good. But talk to me after 20 games under Doug Christie. and then we'll see if they revert back to what they were before he got there or what we expected of them at the start of the season.
Yeah, good point there, Bruce. Worldby, what's your thoughts on this recent surge by the Kings?
Well, the whole issue that we both had when the coaching change was made wasn't the why, it was the how. The Kings were really floundering at that point. And while we may not have agreed with the decision to make a coaching change, there was certainly ample reason. They weren't living up to expectations at all. It was just a why, how things, as Bruce mentioned, how it was handled. That was so it was a comedy hour there. It was just really bad. And by the way, Kings management going out a couple of days ago and finally discussing it when they're on a winning streak, that's about as lousy as it gets too. Where were you 2 weeks ago? Where were you a week ago? Exactly. Yeah, you stand up in front of the camera when things are great. That's garbage. That being said, it's a really weird thing for this Kings team. They're not shooting as well as they were before the coaching change, and they're not. Their opponent field goal percentage isn't as good or is greater now since the coaching change than before. What they're doing, though, their efficiency is way better. They're a top 10 team in defensive efficiency since the coaching change. The biggest deal is they're rebounding the heck out of the ball, especially at the defensive end. Almost 78% of all available rebounds on the defensive end, they're grabbing. And what does that do? That limits the other team's possession. You don't get as many second chance points. You don't get as many opportunities to score. So, that all plays a factor in the efficiency. As Bruce mentioned, Sabonis has been unbelievable. Here's another thing. Doug Christie has gone with Trey Lyles and Sabonis on the court together at the same time a lot more often than they did under Brown, and the benefits are really impressive. I mean, you're seeing more time with them together, the backup center and the starting center. They're holding opponents under a point per possession when they're on the court during this coaching change. So Doug Christie obviously decided, I'm going to go bigger with these guys and see how it pays off, and it's really paid off.
Yeah, and now that Fox is back healthy, they've got an even deeper bench, which has come into play and paid dividends for this team. They've got Kevin Huerter coming off that bench, Keon Ellis, who is a defensive spark plug, kind of filling in the role Davion Mitchell had the years prior in Sacramento. And then they also just got back their first-round draft pick, Devin Carter, who is one of the better rebounding guards in this rookie class. So he has definitely helped out in that department. But Doug Christie has got them rolling as of now. Bruce, I'm actually with you from my own experience here on just the voice. Let's check back in after 20 games, because the way I look at it analogy wise is the fact Doug Christie right now is like an after dinner mint. You have one and it tastes good, but you don't want to have 5 of them. After like the second one, you're going to be sick of it. So we'll see if he's an after dinner mint or an actual replacement for Mike Brown. Next up, we've got the Indiana Pacers, who now have the second biggest winning streak at 6 games after making some serious noise on Sunday as they defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland, which snapped the Cavs' 12-game winning streak. So, Bruce, have the Pacers officially regained their stride? Do you think your boy Rick Carlisle finally got these guys on the right track?
Well, I was very lucky to work with some great analysts at ESPN. Mike Brown being one, Rick Carlisle being one. Now, right now in Naptown, Coach Carlisle has the Pacers on a month-long roll, 12-3 since December 13th. And 2 of the 3 losses were to OKC and Boston. The Bucks also got them. But after you mentioned that win over Cleveland over the weekend, Indy's now got a 6-game winning streak. And, we just talked about the Kings. It's kind of good to remember that these teams made a huge deal almost 2 years ago to the day. Tyrese Halliburton from Sac to Indiana, Domas Sabonis from Indiana to Sacramento. Now, Halliburton has finally gotten into an extended groove, and he has some bucket getters around him with Pascal Siakam, Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard. And remember, too, everyone talks about how Jason Tatum had a tough time at the Olympics this summer. Well, Tyrese Halliburton had an even tougher time. He played like next to no minutes there. And I really think that his mojo may have been a little bit slow to recover after that. And he did have an injury last year, so it's not like he's been 100% healthy. But still, with those bucket getters around him now, he's learned to play off the ball more with Nembhard, and they've really, really clicked. But the story there is the same as it always is, Ross. Unless Rick can get that team playing some serious defense where they're out there on a string in coordination on D, they're not going to go that far, because you can't just outscore teams all the time. You have to get some stops.
No doubt. And I think that is the biggest question mark with this team so far. World B, what's your thoughts on Indiana? Can they keep pace with this recent surge?
I actually think they can. Bruce mentioned it. When they start to play defense, their world gets a lot better. Well, they're starting to play defense. They have the third best defense so far this month. And the real key to this whole lineup has been the return of Andrew Nembhard back in December. He missed almost all of November with an injury. He comes back right at the beginning of December, and they have clicked ever since on the defensive end. Their starting lineup of Nembhard, Tyrese Halliburton, Siakam, Miles Turner, and Mathurin is the best defensive lineup in the league. They're holding opponents under a point per possession when they're all on the court together. So, and that's the number one. They're the fourth most minutes played in the league among starters, and they're the best defensive team. So they're playing defense much better than they had been, which was always a knock on them last year. They had the second most efficient offense in NBA history last year, behind only the Celtics last season. But their defense was terrible. Now their defense is picking up, and their offense is really starting to pick up again. And, you hope Halliburton had to leave the Cavaliers game the other night in the second half. He didn't play at all with a hamstring. You hope that, for their sake, that it's nothing serious. But think about this. Cleveland was held under 100 points for the first time all year against the Pacers. They only scored 40 points in the second half. This is the same team, same Cavaliers team that put 129 on the Thunder in that big matchup last week. The Thunder only being the number one defensive team in the league by a mile, and they absolutely just ran them off the court. Now you get a fully healthy Cavs team coming to Indiana, and Indiana completely shuts them down. That, to me, was an eye-opener. The fact that they're undefeated in January, I'm really thinking this team can make that next step. And if I'm the Knicks, if I'm the Magic, if I'm any of those other contenders, I'm looking over my shoulder because here they come.
You talk about how they're improved defensively, and we have not even mentioned the name Miles Turner, who's one of the top shot blocking bigs in the entire NBA. So, and he's a guy who'll step out there and take some threes. He can be a little streaky, misses more, he misses his share. But again, that's an alley-oop guy. It's a rim protector. It's a shot blocker. I had this team winning 50 in our preseason prediction show. They're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit if they're going to get to 50. But based on their recent trending, and as World B says, they're winning it, even on nights maybe they're not shooting it so well, they could touch 50, and then you're not going to want to play them in the postseason.
No, I mean, we went into the season talking about this team being one of the deeper teams in the NBA. I mean, you look at their lineup 1 through 10, they've got a lot of tools for Rick Carlisle to utilize on that bench as well. And what I really like about this lineup with Andrew Nembhard back into the mix is the fact that not only can they run the floor hard and play at a faster pace offensively, but you look at them and their abilities defensively, they can switch a lot of things. Andrew Nembhard, a little undersized, 6'4", but he plays bigger than he is defensively. Mathurin, the same thing. He's played some small ball 4 for this team. They've got Obi Toppin, who can really play some small ball 5 at times with his athleticism. So a lot of things that they're able to do if they're bought in. And right now they're certainly bought in defensively on other teams. And Cleveland definitely had their struggles with them on Sunday night. Now, next up, Bruce, I'm going to do a little Brian Windhorst impression here for you. What's going on in Boston? Something strange is going on in Boston. They are 7-6 in their last 13 games and nearly suffered a second straight home loss on Sunday, squeaking out a close one against the 8-32 New Orleans Pelicans of all teams, winning 120-119. So where are you at with this team right now? Are you a little worried about how things are trending, or are they fine? Is this just a rut in the season?
I've got a little bit of a long-winded answer here, but I wanted to try and use my historical perspective a little bit here in what I've seen with this team. Okay. So can a 28-11 team be a disappointment? Well, when it's the Celtics, the haters are always out. So many fans would say yes. I say tap the brakes on Boston's demise. If the Cavs weren't off to such a blazing start, Boston would be much closer to number 1 in the East, and some of the boo birds would die down. But don't get me wrong, the past month has been very rocky for the C's. They started 21-5, and as Ross mentioned, they're just 7-6 in their last 13, and they were ridiculously close to choking away a game at home on Sunday night against New Orleans. And it was mental mistakes down the stretch that nearly cost them a brutal loss, including a 5-second violation at the end where Derek White couldn't get the ball in bounds, called a timeout. The referee didn't give it to him. CJ McCollum, if not for a tough bounce on his part, would have had the game winner at the buzzer. But instead, Boston, survived. But here's the thing. And Boston never had a stretch like this last season. They never had a 7-6 stretch at all last season. They never even lost 2 games in a row, I don't think, last season.
I don't think so either, no.
But here's the thing, and now I'm going to give some of us a little bit of a history flashback. Sorry for the long-windedness here. At ESPN, I covered the 1994 and 95 Houston Rockets teams that won it all. And I'm getting a bit of a 95 Rockets vibe from the Celtics team. When Hakeem Olajuwon and his crew won their first chip in 94, they won 58 games, went 15-8 in the playoffs, and they beat the Knicks in the finals. But in 1995, their repeat year, they only won 47 games, which was 11 fewer than the year before, and they finished third in their division. They had to go the distance in their first 2 playoff series before finally getting their act together when Hakeem tortured David Robinson in the Western Finals, and then they went on and swept Shaq in the 1995 Finals 4-0. So after the 95 championship, we've all seen the quote from Rudy Tomjanovich, where he famously said, "Never underestimate the heart of a champion." I'm getting that feeling in Boston. Now, here's the thing. They're probably going to finish second in the East, even if they approach 60 wins. Cleveland has got a hammer lock on this thing unless they go in the tank, all right? But come playoff time, I'm expecting to see a crew in Boston that truly does have the heart of a champion.
Nicely said. World B, what's your thoughts?
They're not shooting the ball well. I mean, short answer, they're a perimeter-oriented team. If they're not, we talked about last week, if they're not hitting their threes because they take over half their shots from 3-point range, then they're beatable. Then you have a chance against them. And the last 4 games, they've been outscored from 3-point range against their opponent. The first 35 games, this happened just 4 times. It's happened in each of the last 4 games. So, yeah, they're not shooting the ball well. And it's not, you can call it just a minor blip or slump or whatever you want to call it. And maybe it is, because over the last 4 games, they've had almost half of their 3-point attempts were what we call wide open, beyond 6 feet or whatever. And they're only shooting 24% on those wide open threes. That's not the Boston team we know about. They're a team that just likes to shoot it, and they have enough good shooters that you have to keep up with them. But if they're going to play down to your level as far as shooting goes, you have a chance. Kristaps Porzingis during these last 4 games, they're getting outscored by 19 points total with him on the court. So it's just he hasn't been an impact player for this team really yet. We haven't really discussed how great he is yet. It could still happen. Bruce said, I don't think there's room to panic, but they're definitely slumping, and they're getting further and further behind Cleveland, which I guess in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter when you're Boston. You just got to win one time in Cleveland if it gets to that, I suppose. But, if you're looking at right now, Cleveland's looking a lot better as far as coming out of the East than Boston is.
I think my biggest cause for concern here is the fact that, they got to stay in that number 2 position out East, because if you get too close to New York or maybe even Orlando as guys get healthy, as we're going to discuss here in a moment, then I have some worries. I worry a little bit more there. But if they're able to stay number 2, that'd be great. They need to have some solid ground in that number 2 spot, because let's face it, one of the biggest concerns with this Celtics team, 3 guys, Porzingis, Horford, Drew Holiday. You got to have those guys ready and healthy for the playoffs. And you'd really hope, ideally, if you're the defending champs in the Boston Celtics of all teams, that you're not having to play guys in game 79, 81, 82, So that's the biggest thing. Hopefully you can have a nice enough cushion in that at least second spot to where they can give those guys a rest before they're really going to need them to go hard for a 7-game series. So we'll have to keep an eye on them. But I mentioned the Orlando Magic. We're going to start with you on this one, as your guy, Paolo Banchero, has returned and looks like he never really skipped a beat. He had 34 points and 7 rebounds against Milwaukee in his debut on Friday, and he followed that up with a 20-point, 8 rebound, and 6 assist performance on Sunday. So while Paolo has returned, will he be enough to help this Magic team hold on to that 4th spot in the East with Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner still out with a very tough week ahead. Here's what lies ahead for Orlando. The Magic will face the Bucks in Milwaukee on Wednesday, the Celtics in Boston on Friday, and then host the Denver Nuggets at home on Sunday. So how do you think they're going to fare, World B, and what do you take of the Paolo news?
Having Paolo back is huge for them. They obviously needed it. They're so banged up here. Even over the weekend, they couldn't get healthier because they lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to an injury on Sunday. So the last thing they need, they're trying to get guys healthy. And you win one, lose one doesn't really factor in. I don't know where this team goes. Their defense that we've talked about, throughout the season is off the charts. It's one of the best. It's really impressive. You're a fan to watch games, watch them play defense is really something. But that's where you really should stop watching, because when they get on the offensive end, it's a train wreck. They're still, even with Paolo there, they're still at best a mediocre offensive team. They just don't have players. They just don't have enough players. They're a deep team if everybody's healthy. But when you're not healthy and you have to play your bench guys, give them starters minutes, after a while it starts to show. It's just they're the worst shooting team from three-point range by far. I mean, barely over 30% from three-point range. Why they take a three is beyond me, but they still do. It's going to be tough this week. It's going to be a tough week, but they respond well to adversity. Their backs into the wall. They may not win any of these games, but I really don't see them getting blown out in 3 straight games, just because they're pros. They go out there and they play hard. Mosley gets them to play hard every night. There's very a rare night where they just take off, or they're just not in it. They may not play well. They may get blown out, but it's not going to be because of effort. It's just going to be they just don't have players right now, even with Banchero back.
Yep. Bruce, what's your thoughts on Orlando?
Even though they have been injured, a lot of their younger guys, and World B really mentioned what the key to this team was. They play hard. I mean, they give you – back in the old days when Arkansas was a great college basketball team, Nolan Richardson, his defense was known as 40 minutes of hell. He was the Arkansas head coach. Well, Jamal Mosley's team gives you 48 minutes of hell. And again, as World B says, that what they're lacking in talent, they make up for in just sheer dogged determination, grittiness, toughness, hustle, you name it. Now, with the emergence, with the return of Paolo, obviously he's their best player. But Goga Batadze has been really good for those guys this year. Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac. I mean, that is a jumbo front court with 4 6'10" guys working inside. And when Franz Wagner, also a 6'10" guy, eventually returns, that's an all-star level guy right there. This scrappy bunch is going to back down from nobody. Mosley's done a great job helping this team pull wins out of its hat. What do you expect from a team called the Magic? Hello. I believe this team will peak at the right time, and they are going to be a bitch come April.
One thing about their offense, Bruce mentioned how they're 48 minutes of hell defensively. Well, on the offensive end, they're 48 minutes in hell if you have to watch them. I mean, it's just that bad. Last 15 games, they've topped 110 points once. And that was the game against Miami right before Christmas, when they had this ridiculous comeback to pull it out. You're just not going to win that many games in the long haul if you can't score more than that. But, yeah, they start getting healthy again. As Bruce mentioned, they can absolutely make a run. It's just a matter if they can get enough guys healthy.
Yeah, no doubt. The one thing I know for sure about this Orlando team, though, I don't care if they're not shooting the ball well or not. Nobody wants to face them first round and get stuck with the Orlando Magic, because, as you said, that's going to be 48 minutes of hell. That's a team that can knock off anybody. I mean, from what we've seen so far this season, whoever's available is competing, and they find a way to win ball games, or at least have a chance to win ball games down the stretch there. So with that, we just gave you 24 minutes of heaven. We'll be right back with the second half here on 48 Minutes. And we're back here on 48 Minutes. And as we near the midpoint of the season, let's reflect on the first half of the season and kind of look at some of the awards and have some interesting questions for the both of you. And we're going to start out with this question. How many true contenders are there in each conference right now? Let's go ahead and start in the East, Bruce.
Cleveland has to be the current favorite. The franchise record for wins was 66 under, wait for it, Mike Brown back in 2009. The Cavs are currently on pace for 70 wins. They've clicked from day one. They've been very healthy also, which is to their benefit. If their good health continues, they're at least a co-favorite to win the conference. Celtics are lurking. They've been a much better team on the road than they've been at home. So finishing second, as Russ said, if they can hang on to second and not have to extend themselves too much down the stretch to keep it, they're not going to worry about winning a game on the road in Cleveland in the conference finals if they get that far. But the Knicks are the team that should scare everyone. But as World B briefly alluded to, maybe it was before we started recording, but he said, they need to hit April with lots of gas left in their tanks. Their 5 starters all play big minutes, and Tibbs likes to run them out there nearly every night. They're third right now, and I think that's where they're probably going to finish, even if they blow past 50 wins. But for Tibbs to use his bench more, he'll need to adapt his coaching style. But will he, World B?
I don't know. That's a very good question. The contenders for me in the Eastern Conference right now are just 2. It's Cleveland and Boston. The Knicks are on the fence for me. They're nice. We saw them Sunday, right after they gotten embarrassed by the Thunder in what was supposed to be a big game, and they got thoroughly embarrassed off their own court. They come back on Sunday and completely embarrass the Bucks, who had been playing better, or so we thought. So I'm kind of on the fence with them. They look like a team that's getting tired early. Yeah. There's just no other way to put it. It could be just a slump. We could see how they respond. Maybe it's just a little bit of a hitting the wall here in the season. But as Bruce mentioned, they starters play more minutes than anybody in the league. That lineup of theirs, their starting lineup, plays more minutes than anybody in any 5-player lineup in the league by a wide margin. It's not even close. I don't think anybody's within 200 minutes in terms of lineup. So it's really a big deal. They don't seem to. They say it doesn't bother them, but injuries seem to happen right from that point when you get extended minutes. Look what happened to them last year in the playoffs. I mean, the game 7 against the Pacers, they were basically just wheeling people out to try and put out 5 players, and they got blown off the court there. So for me, it's just right now it's just Cleveland, Boston. Everybody else is just trying to find their way.
Yeah, well, we at least know one thing about the Knicks. Mikal Bridges will be available in those games, no matter how much Tibbs keeps the pedal to the metal out there with his starting 5. I've got New York in my group. They are my 3rd team in this list. And I think it's a clear-cut 3 as far as true contenders out east. That's Cleveland, Boston, and New York. I think Boston will be fine. I'm not ready to panic, but certainly worth noting their struggles here in the last month or so. Definitely concerning, as I already alluded to, with just trying to make sure the end of the season isn't a time where they really need to push for wins and some of these guys can get off their feet a bit. And then with Cleveland, I mean, they just are the total package right now with the improvement of Evan Mobley. Their guards are playing great in games that Donovan Mitchell doesn't have it going. Darius Garland steps up and vice versa. They've really got the whole thing going in Cleveland right now. I don't see them slowing up anytime soon. They have really found a groove and a confidence. And as of now, they even kept Karis LeVert pretty healthy on the season. So if they can keep that going, they've got another 6-man that can really step up and help them win some big games. Now, as we shift to the Western Conference here, Bruce, how many teams out west do you have as a true contender?
Well, OKC is far and away the favorite. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads this team. He's got a total game. His rejection of Jason Tatum at the rim in their recent win over Boston was a breathtaking defensive play. It started a fast break that ended in an alley-oop dunk by Isaiah Hartenstein on an assist by SGA, who had gotten the ball back after the rejection, ran the court. It was one of the best defense to offense sequences of the season, considering that it was Gilgeous-Alexander rejecting Jason Tatum, one of the top scorers in the league, who, SGA gives up at least 2-3 inches to him. So, that was impressive. Now, who else is a contender? Denver is lurking in 4th place. Nikola Jokic could very well win his 4th MVP award, and Jamal Murray has definitely looked better lately. And after a rocky 11-10 start, see what I did there? Denver is 12-5 and also has that heart of a champion thing going, as they won it 2 years ago. So, yes, I mean, those to me are the 2 teams that have a real chance. Houston's too young. Their time will come. Lakers may be too old, but LeBron, you never underestimate him. Maybe Dallas or the Wolves will get it together, but I haven't seen that yet.
Yep. Will be.
For me, I mean, if we're talking contenders out of the West, to me right now, it's just OKC. They're the best defensive team by far, and they have the offensive guys to do it. They're going to be deep. They're not even healthy right now. Chet Holmgren's out. Alex Caruso's out. Wait till those guys get back and healthy by the end of the year. Now let's see what kind of lineup you have. Jalen Williams is – I'd like to see him be an all-star this year. I don't know if he will in that crowded West, but he's not just a really solid offensive player. I mean, he does it at the defensive end at 6'5" or 6'6". He's playing the 5 at times this year for minutes. He's one of the best at defending the rim for anybody's side, let alone his side. So they're far and away. They're 6 teams clear of anybody else in the West. So there's really nobody that we got to say at this point is a serious contender. That being said,
looks like we lost World B for a second here. So I will jump up here and pick my 3 teams. I have 3 out West. It's Oklahoma City, as you guys both have. I have the Denver Nuggets because you can't underestimate the heart of a champion, and you certainly can't underestimate the Joker because I am not betting against that man at any point in time, just given what he's capable of doing on a nightly basis. And he could really pick apart a team in a series. When he gets a look at a team for 4, 5, 6, 7 games, I mean, he's really going to get it. Jot things down mentally and kind of pick you apart there. So I do like the Nuggets, and they seem to have found a solution. Russell Westbrook kind of came and saved their season in the starting lineup. He's bringing a ton of energy, production with this group, and some leadership vocally for this team. So it's really good to see there. And I did it last year, and I'm not going to do it this year, Bruce. I've got the Dallas Mavericks in my 3 because it might be a blessing in disguise. Both Luka and Kyrie are out due to injury right now. If they can get healthy, have this time away, and then come back fully firing, I mean, they are the engine that runs that team. And if they're both back healthy and, maybe only played 60 games on the season compared to everybody else playing, 80, that might be a major advantage for Dallas, a team that, did make the finals last year. So I'm not going to underestimate them in a playoff series since they have been there before. Now, next question up, Bruce. We've got outside of the 2 conference leaders with Cleveland in the East and OKC in the West, which team has been most impressive so far this season?
Well, in the East, I mean, Orlando's ability to persevere despite the injuries to all those key guys we talked about a few minutes ago, that's a credit to their grittiness as a team. And then there are the Pistons. I was expecting the Pistons to be much improved, and they've exceeded expectations. When we did our preview show, the over-under going into the season for this team was 25.5 wins. I had predicted 36 after they won just 17 last season. Through Sunday, they're at 20. And also, they are actually over 500 for the first time in forever.
Very nice. World B?
Yeah, I gave Bruce the Pistons there because I knew he was going to go there just based on what he thought during the preseason. And he was right. He has every reason to go over the top about them because they've picked it up. And if it wasn't for the way the Pacers have played of late, I would have chosen the Pistons as well because the Pistons have really been impressive. Cade Cunningham is an all-star. He better be on the all-star team this year. The way he's been playing, he's one of the best players in the league. But the Pacers, their ability to play defense along with offense in the last month and a half has really impressed me. And I'm telling you, we talked about contenders. I can't put them up there yet, but I'm telling you, the way they're playing, by the end of the year, this could be the 3 seed.
Yeah, definitely. Now, given the injury situation in Orlando, I'm going with the Magic here. This is a team that has one solidified star in my mind in Paolo Banchero and 2 borderline stars in Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs, all of which have unfortunately missed quite a few games throughout the course of this season. Yet the Magic are still 5 games above 500, and they're sitting 4th out West. So very impressive by Coach Mosley in this group. They have impressed me the most in the Eastern Conference this season, given kind of where they currently stand. Bruce, we got the Western Conference up next. Who you got?
Well, I was expecting major progress from Houston this year, and I predicted Ime Udoka would be the coach of the year. So far, so good. They're a rugged defensive team. They have some tough-minded veterans out there, along with a ton of young talent. They're on pace for more than 50 wins. And you can't mention Houston without mentioning the team that they're playing on Monday night, and that is Memphis. They're leading the NBA in points per game. I'm going to repeat that. The Memphis Grizzlies are scoring more points per game than any other team in the entire NBA. They like that fast pace. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been a beast at both ends. He's got to be an all-star. So, yeah, I'd say Houston and Memphis have been super impressed, have impressed me greatly.
All right, World B. And World B is gone. Here we go. I've got the Memphis Grizzlies on this one, Bruce. So I kind of going to steal some things from you. I wanted to point out just the laundry list of players they've had on their injured list game to game, with Taylor Jenkins having to kind of navigate that with whoever's healthy at that given time. Yet that hasn't really slowed them down. As you mentioned, they're leading the league in points, and that's at 123 points per contest. And you look at that lineup, and it doesn't really even make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense unless you watch their games and kind of see the level of energy and activity and pace they're playing at. But, Jaren Jackson Jr., candidate number one as far as kind of who leads that group both offensively and defensively, gets a lot of things going on the defensive end with his deflections and block shots there. They are 9 games above 500, currently third out west. Very impressed with the season they are having, despite the same troubles injury-wise as they kind of had last year. They've just figured out a better way to adapt to the situation. So give credit to him there. Now, next up, Bruce, we've got the question, which team in each conference has been the most disappointing so far? And let's start in the East.
It's got to be Philly. I mean, they have shown some recent life after a terrible 3-14 start. Joel Embiid has missed 24 of their first 37 games. I mean, Paul George battled early injuries, and he's at a 10-year low in his scoring numbers. So for a team expected to win 50-plus games, they're nowhere close to 500 almost halfway through the season. The Bucks have also had their problems, but they're in way better shape than the Sixers. They're currently 20-17, sixth best in the East. But yeah, Philly has been abysmal.
Yeah, totally agree there. I've got the Philadelphia 76ers as the most disappointing team in the East so far as well, because if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't even make the play-in tournament. Given the fact that they landed last year's biggest free agent in Paul George and returned much of the same team with, of course, includes another year of experience for Tyrese Maxey. I had a lot of expectations for this group. I expected much different results, even knowing Embiid's questionable track record when it comes to availability. And they just have not been able to get firing on all cylinders. Now, World B, who's your team as the most disappointing team out East?
I think it's the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, we're forgetting this team a year ago was the team. When they got Damian Lillard, we thought they were, we're now in year 2, and they're nowhere close to contending. We haven't even mentioned them in the list of contenders this season. They look like they're playing a little bit better, and then they go to New York, a struggling New York team, and get blown out. It just can't happen with a team that has these 3 guys. And now, Chris Middleton's back to coming off the bench. They tried him at starter, didn't work out. They're 0-8 against the top 3 teams in the East.
Yeah.
This is which is fine for any other team, but we're talking about the Bucks. We're talking about a team that was supposed to be the contender until the Celtics made the trade for Drew Holiday last season in the offseason. The Bucks were the team. We talked about. We had a special show because of the deal for Lillard. We thought this was a big deal, and they haven't come close to being contenders since then, and certainly not this year. Even when they play well, there's just absolutely no consistency, and the choice to go with Doc Rivers, it's gotten him better, but it hasn't gotten him any closer to a title.
Yeah, definitely hasn't. And that I saw that 0-8 stat as well, World B, and that really just was a punch to the gut. Not a good sign for Milwaukee in terms of being contenders in the Eastern Conference. All right, Bruce, most disappointing team in the West.
There are several good candidates, but the Pelicans are absolutely brutal. Their over-under heading into the season was 46.5. I had them at 41 and 41, but they are 8-32 through Sunday. Zion Williamson recently returned after missing 2 months due to yet another major injury. They're certainly not in contention for a banner, but they're in big-time contention for a flag. Hello. Minnesota and Phoenix are the dishonorable mention teams as the second and third most disappointing teams in the West for me.
All right. World B?
It's Minnesota for me. This is a team, they made a big deal about this trade, getting rid of Cat and bringing in Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. There were a lot of people that thought they got the better of the deal before the season started. I want to see what those people are now, because it's been an absolute disaster with those two. Julius Randle, his reputation, as if I didn't think it'd get worse when he was in New York, and it somehow did while he was since he's been in Minnesota. It's just been an absolute train wreck for them. No, doesn't look like there's any chemistry on this team. This is a team, they were number one defensive team a year ago by a wide margin. They dominated. They were one of the surprise teams. I had them going to the finals this season in our preseason show. I thought they was going to make the next step. And boy, there's a lot of egg on my face over that pick. They've been, to me, the most disappointing team in the league.
All right, and we're going to have three different answers for this one, as I'm going with the Phoenix Suns. They are tied for 10th out west as of taping at 19-19 on the season. They had an incredible offseason, all things considered, given their cap situation. They added a point guard in Tyus Jones, added a solid veteran big in Mason Plumlee, who now starts for the team. And they even had a fantastic draft, as both Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro have already had positive contributions out there on the floor for this team. They're playing regular minutes now for this group and doing a fantastic job. But this is a team that features the likes of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Brad Beal, and also has solid role pieces that any team would beg for, and Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen. And just last night, they could barely squeak out a win against the Charlotte Hornets on their home floor. I know it was the second night of a back-to-back, and Charlotte got a delayed rest due to the LA cancellation of games. But you can't be going back and forth with the Charlotte Hornets if you're in the Western Conference. That's a game you got to win, and they barely squeaked that one out and pretty much got lucky because the Hornets had the game through three quarters of play. But they have been a real disappointment, and I know I don't have to tell any Suns fans that because they would agree with me there. Now, next up we have, who is your first half of the season MVP, Bruce?
Well, Nikola Jokic is deserving of his fourth MVP, but voter fatigue is in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's favor, yeah. I believe. SGA is going to be the choice. His team is 32-6 heading into Monday. OKC has virtually locked up the top seed in the West by mid-January. And much like Michael Jordan in the 90s, Joker could be MVP every year, but just as Karl Malone won it instead of MJ in 1997, SGA is going to win it this year.
Nice. Will be.
Well, I don't disagree that SGA is probably the favorite at this point, and as long as he doesn't go into a major collapse, it's probably his time to earn it. For me, I mean, I'm looking at who I think is the MVP. It's really close to me, but I right now I'd say it's Joker. I think it's unbelievable what he's able to produce night in and night out. And I keep going back, and I mention all the time on this show the difference in their offense. And they have legitimate players. They have a lot of quality players. Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. Quality players that have titles on their resume. But the offensive difference when Joker's on the court and when it's off is unbelievable. Still to this point, it's incredible. They don't even shoot 45% from the field when Joker's off the court. That's unbelievable for a team that is 2 years removed from a title. So I totally get it. It's probably going to be SGA, but my choice right now would probably be Joker slightly over Giannis because people don't realize Giannis, Ross knows, but Giannis is having probably the best season of his career.
Yeah, well, Giannis is not my pick. Spoiler alert here. I'm actually going with SGA, much like Bruce. He's averaging 31.3 points a game, 6.1 assists, and 2 steals per contest. And Shai's Thunder Squad has a 9-game lead over Joker's Nuggets in the Western Conference standings. So those 9 games mean a whole hell of a lot to me when voting for this award. And I certainly believe team win should play a partial factor. But I don't think you can go wrong with either of those 3 picks. I know we only touched on Joker with World B and SGA. But yes, Giannis is having a heck of a season as well. But I got to go with the guy that's leading the Western Conference in the standings, and that is SGA, who has really led this team and put them on their back and got everything going in Oklahoma City. Now, last but certainly not least, who is your first half of the season coach of the year, Bruce?
Well, Cleveland has the NBA's best record, but none of their players are likely MVPs. So the writers should vote their coach, Kenny Atkinson, as coach of the year, at least to this point. He's taken a 48-win team and has them on a pace to win 70 this year. Ime Udoka, Jamal Mosley, and last year's winner, Mark Daignault, are all in the mix as well. But it's really Kenny Atkinson with this wire-to-wire Cavaliers squad.
Yep. World B?
I so want to give it to a guy like Jamal Mosley. Is one of my favorite coaches in the league, who's doing so much with everything that's going on there that we just talked about. Taylor Jenkins at Memphis has just the same injury issues, maybe not to the extreme that Orlando has, but he's got them in one of the top teams in the West. It's Kenny Atkinson, though, as Bruce mentioned. I mean, it was a controversial move to get rid of JB Bickerstaff after last season. We all questioned it, and all he's done is taken this team to the best team in the league. I mean, no question about it. I don't know if there's a bigger surprise in the NBA than the Cleveland Cavaliers so far this season. And by the way, the Brooklyn Nets had Kenny Atkinson as their coach, had Jared Allen as their starting center, and look where great move on Sean Marks' part to do away with both along the way.
They had Kevin Durant too.
Yeah, they definitely did. Well, you didn't do it, World B, so I'll certainly do it. I'm actually going to go with Jamal Mosley for my pick as the first half of the season coach of the year. He's finished second for the honors last season, and this year he's even been more impressive in my eyes. I've got to give it to Coach. I got to give Coach Mosley and his staff a ton of credit for their in-game management, adjustments, player development, and instilling that next up mentality on their entire roster. It's clear the entire Magic roster is bought into what Coach Mosley is voicing out there on a nightly basis, and Orlando continues to remain a tough matchup every night, no matter who is available to play in their game. So I'm going to give him the flowers I think he deserves this year after coming up short last year and getting second place in the Coach of the Year award. Now, quick final thought for both Bruce and World B that I had planned that they don't know that's coming, but have you guys by chance heard LiAngelo Ball's new rap single titled Tweaker that's been taking the NBA by storm?
That would be no.
You have not. World B, come on, you're our Hornets guy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I haven't, but yeah, I just haven't heard it. I didn't. The missing ball, I guess, is.
All right. Well, the song evidently was good enough to warrant a $13 million record deal from Def Jam Records, as reported today by Shams. So it is definitely going viral right now. And with that said, I'm going to play a little mix on the actual song and just have that reminder that next week we'll have on Hall of Fame journalist JA Adande joining us on the show. And anything to add on that? I mean, I know that I'm looking forward to having on JA. Bruce, that's your guy. What can you tell us about him to kind of get us a sneak preview?
Well, that show is going to be recording one day later than we normally do. So we're going to record it on Tuesday night of next week, the 21st. Yep. Now, on the 26th, it's the 5th year anniversary of the untimely death of Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gigi, and all of those friends in a helicopter crash on January 26th of 2020. So JA had a long history, many stories with Kobe. One of them actually involves a show that we did on ESPN, and we're going to tell that story. It's a very, very cool story. So JA will share perspective on one of the most compelling NBA players in the history of the game, the late Kobe Bryant.
Awesome. Can't wait for that. And we look forward to having you guys tuned in for that one. But for this edition of 48 Minutes, that will do it. Thanks for tuning in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. And we'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association with JA Adande. Stay tuned. Take care.